In this video, we'll create a custom bottom tab bar using Rive animated icons along with this home screen UI, all from scratch. In the previous video, we built the onboarding UI and the sign-in model. Do check that one out. But since these modules aren't yet connected, you can follow along just fine even if you start here. Before we dive in, huge thanks to the original creator of the app, Design+Code. This project is inspired by the SwiftUI plus Rive course created by Mangto. In the course, he walks through building the same app using SwiftUI and also teaches how to create your own custom Rive assets using the Rive editor. It's completely free and includes both videos and articles. I'll drop the link in the description. Highly recommend checking it out. So first, we're going to generate the bottom tab bar component. I'll change the default selector name and import all the components and modules that we will need for this component. Next, we'll import the component into the main course Rive page so we can use it as a tag in the HTML. For now, I'll temporarily comment out the onboarding tag. For our bottom tab, we're using icons from a Rive community icon collection. Each icon has an animation controlled by a single input called active. In the HTML, we'll add an Ionic row as the container and give it a background color from our theme. Inside that, we'll add an Ionic column and use Rive's canvas element with the file name icons, along with artboard, state machine, and input name with value of true. For now, we're using just the chat icon from the collection. To position the tab bar at the bottom, we'll wrap it in a container div with gradient border class. We'll style with gradient border later on. For positioning, we'll set it to position fixed, align it to bottom using safe area inset, and add pixels of extra space. Now let's make the icon interactive. We'll create a local variable called status with the default value of false and set it to true on icon press. In the HTML, we'll bind this to the icon's input value and call the function on click of the column element. However, the click isn't being detected properly. That's because the canvas is intercepting with the touch event. To fix that, we'll add pointer events to none to the canvas element. Let's check by reopening the app. Now the animation works, but it loops continuously and we want it to play just once. So after setting status to true, we'll add a 1 second timeout and reset it back to false. This way, the icon animates once per click and resets. Next, to render the other tab icons, we'll create a models folder and a tabs file. Here, we'll define an array with each tab's details, icon name, artboard, state machine, and other properties. Back in the tab bar component, we import this array and assign it to a local variable called tab items. In the HTML, we'll render the list using ng4 and add a track by function to ensure each icon has a unique ID. We'll also update the hard-coded Rive properties to use the values from each array item. Right now, clicking on one icon animates all of them. That's because we're still using a shared status variable. To fix this, we'll pass the individual tab item to the click function and update its status directly. We can now safely remove the shared status variable from the component. In the HTML, pass the tab item into the function and update the status value from that object. Now each icon animates independently, exactly how we want. Let's add a fixed width and height to each tab icon. In CSS, we'll add left and right to stretch it along the width with a value of 24 pixels to give it some breathing room. Add border radius and padding to the tab bar and remove the default padding from Ionic column using Ionic's built-in CSS properties. Set a fixed width for the column, align its content to the center, and apply cursor pointer as it is clickable. Finally, add some spacing between the icons. Some of the icons might not load properly right now. That's kind of limitation of the Rive package. It can have trouble rendering multiple icons at once. To work around this, we'll use a show property on each tab item to conditionally render them. In ng-on-init, we'll loop through the tab items and trigger a set timeout for each one, adding a small delay so that they render one after another. This helps prevent the issue and ensures all icons load correctly. It's not ideal, but until the package improves, this workaround gets the job done. Next, we want the selected tab state to be controlled from the parent component, since we'll be using that to conditionally display each tab's content. So in the bottom tab bar component, create an input called selected tab and set its default value to the first item in the tab array. Then in the parent component, define a state variable with the same name and default it to the same first tab item. Then pass that value down to the tab bar component via the tag in the HTML. Now to update this value from the tab bar itself, we'll create an output event emitter called onTabChange. Inside the onIconPress function, we'll emit the clicked tab item through this event. Then in the parent component, we'll update the selected tab state when we receive that callback. Now we can track which tab is selected and respond accordingly. Let's add a visual indicator for the active tab. In the tab item layout, add a div with the class ActiveIndicator. Set its height to 4 pixels, give it a color from our theme, and add a border radius of 2 pixels. Since it's affecting icon's positioning, we'll wrap it inside another container and set that container to position absolute. Use left 0 and right 0 to stretch it fully and position it with top of -4 pixels so it appears just above the icon. Now let's control the indicator's width with a CSS class. Create a class called expand and use ng class to apply it conditionally for the selected tab. Center the indicator using flex styles. It's working, but let's animate the indicator for a smoother effect. In CSS keyframes, animate the width from 0 to 20 pixels between 0% and 100%. Then apply this animation to the expand class with a short duration and easing. Now the indicator slides in nicely when the tab becomes active. Let's add a gradient to the bottom tab bar. And just for testing, we'll start with red and green so we can see it clearly. Add some padding, border radius, and a border to shape it, and this is how it will look. Change the border to 0.5 pixels and use a color that's a mix of white and transparent. It may not be fully visible right now, but once we add more screen content, it'll blend in better, just like in the original app. Finally, let's add a subtle box shadow to lift the tab bar visually. One last fix, if you click the already selected tab, it still plays the animation. To prevent that, add a condition in the click handler so that the animation only triggers if the click tab is not the currently selected one. Now that the custom bottom tab bar is ready, let's move on to the tab screen. First, we'll create a content view component inside the views folder. I'll change the selector name and import the required modules. Then import this component in the root and add the CR content view tag in the HTML. Inside the content view HTML, we'll start with the title using the large title font variation from our global theme. Right now the title is appearing behind the notch, so we'll wrap the entire content in a div with a class home tab container and apply top padding using the safe area inset. Next, we'll create a file in the models folder called course and define a dummy array with properties for the card selection. Import this course list array into the content view component. In the HTML, create a course container div to hold the card layout. Add a title and subtitle. For now, we'll use values from the first item in the array. Apply display flags and flags direction column to the container. Add a gradient background, white text color, padding, and border radius. Wrap the course title in a course title class and apply a margin bottom. For the subtitle, reduce the opacity slightly to give it a dimmed effect. Below this, add a caption with vertical spacing. Next, we'll show a row of user avatars. Use an Ionic row to render an array of images and add track by to assign a unique ID to each. Wrap each image in a container with the avatar container class. Set fixed width and height for the images. Apply border radius and use overflow hidden. Add some spacing between each avatar. To stack the avatars slightly on top of each other, we'll apply an inline transform style. In the HTML, translate x each image by -20 pixels multiplied by the index. This creates the overlapping avatar effect we're going for. Right now the card stretches across the full width of the screen. Let's limit it to a fixed size so we can render it as a horizontal list. Add a spacer div with flex1 to separate the avatar row from the card's content. Now we'll add the course image. Set its width and height and position it absolute in the top right corner with top 20 pixel and right 20 pixels. The image is currently positioned relative to the root. To fix that, we'll set position relative on the card container. The image is also clipping the title, so we'll reduce the title width to 170 pixels. Finally, we'll add a box shadow to lift the card visually. Now let's render the full list of horizontal cards. Add an ng for loop on the card container and use track by for unique ID for each item. By default, the list renders vertically. To change that, wrap the cards in a wrapper div. Set display to flex and disable flex wrapping. And apply overflow X to auto to allow horizontal scrolling. Add some padding to the container to space things out. Right now the card sizing isn't consistent. They shrink based on the content. To fix this, apply flex of 0 space 0 space auto to each card, where first is flex grow, second is flex shrink, and last is flex basis. This means no growth, no shrink, and keep the width defined by the content. Add spacing between the cards as well. Finally, replace the hard-coded card content with the dynamic values from the array. Now if the subtitle is too long, it might overflow the height of the card. To handle that, we'll limit it to 2 lines using CSS and show ellipses after that. In our dummy data, each item has a unique RGB color code. To use that in the background, we'll assign it to a CSS variable --course-bg. Then use that variable for background and shadow styling for the card. Optionally, we can hide the horizontal scroll bar for a cleaner look. Finally, let's add some horizontal margin to the section title to align it properly. With the horizontal card section done, let's now build the vertical list for the recent courses section. First, import and declare a dummy array for the recent courses, just like we did for the previous section. In the HTML, add an Ionic column to lay out items vertically. Inside that, create an Ionic row and add the course title, a caption, and a course image. Wrap the title and caption in one Ionic column and wrap the image in a separate one. Set the image column container size to auto so it only takes up the space it needs. Add a BR tag between the title and caption to show them on separate lines. Set the background color of the row using the color from the array item. Wrap everything in a container with the class section container. In CSS, remove the default padding from the child Ionic column. Set a fixed height, white text color, border radius, padding, and alignment vertically center. Set a fixed size and margin left for the course image. Add some spacing between the title and the caption. To make this list responsive, wrap the items inside an Ionic grid. Inside the grid, place the list item in an Ionic row. Now let's apply ng4 on the list to render each course. Use size of 12 on the Ionic column to ensure that it spans the full width. In CSS, update the default grid padding and do the same for the child column elements. Finally, make sure the list is using data from the array and add some bottom padding between both sections. Now, one small improvement. Let's randomize the avatar list for each card so it doesn't always appear in the same order. To do that, we'll create an Angular pipe called shuffle-array in a helpers directory. In the pipe, use the built-in sort method to shuffle the array and return the result. Import the pipe into the content view component and apply it using the vertical bar character with the pipe name syntax inside the ng4. Now the avatar order appears randomly each time. You might also notice the screen isn't scrollable right now. So go back to the root course Rive component and wrap the content in an Ionic content element. Make sure to import Ionic content from the framework. I will also import the other components we will need for this page. Now the screen scrolls properly. Next, we'll update the screen's background by setting it from our global theme, and we'll hide the vertical scroll bar for a cleaner look. Now, to show and hide the tab screen based on the selected tab, we'll import the bottom tab item array into the root component. In the HTML, add a condition to only display the content view if the selected tab is the first one. For the other tabs, just display the tab title as a placeholder for now. To center the title vertically and horizontally, give the placeholder complete viewport height and width and use flex layout to center the text. And it's working just as expected. Let's now give the bottom tab bar a polished look with a frosted glass effect. First, make its background slightly transparent. Then apply backdrop filter of blur 10 pixels to give it that soft, blurred look behind the icons. And it now feels much more refined. Next, we will handle responsiveness on the larger screens. Right now, the bottom tab bar stretches across the entire width of the screen, which doesn't look great on desktop. Let's limit the width to 768 pixels and center it using Margin Auto. Then apply the same styling in the HTML as well. The recent courses list is also stretching too wide. On larger screens, we'll switch to a grid layout by applying size-lg to 6 on the Ionic column. This makes each course take up half the screen's width on desktop while keeping the full width on the mobile. Lastly, bottom tab bar is covering part of the screen content. To fix that, we'll add bottom padding to the scrollable area. Include both the safe area inset and an estimate for the tab bar height. Around 60 pixels should do it. Now everything is spaced correctly, looks great, and scrolls as expected. And that completes the second module of our app, the bottom tab bar and the tab screen UI. In the next part, we'll build a custom animated sidebar from scratch and put all the modules together to complete the application. So be sure to stick around and I'll see you in the next one.